remembering those lost to overdoses in the wake of a provincial decision that some say will cost more people their lives. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Local organizations and community members gathered at Waverley Park today for International Overdose Awareness Day.
This is the first such event since the province announced that it'll be closing the local safe consumption site, a decision many believe will lead to even more deaths. Nev Van Pelt joins us in studio. Nev, how bad is the drug crisis in our city already?
Haley, statistics from 2023 showed that Thunder Bay had the highest per capita death rate in the province. So bringing awareness to the overdose crisis is essential. The numbers have gradually decreased since the pandemic, but officials say they are still alarmingly high for a city this size.
We see this happening every day in our community, numerous times a day.
The most recent data from the Office of the Chief Coroner showed there were 77 overdose deaths in the Thunder Bay census area last year. Acting Drug Strategy Lead Riley Willinen says overdoses and drug addiction impacts everyone.
Having days like today is really important to raise awareness about that, to also educate folks on risks of overdose and how to maybe mitigate those risks as well. It's also a good time to honor those people who have been impacted by or lost their lives to overdose and really bring community together to let people know that there's support out there.
Local paramedics say the numbers are trending in the wrong direction. Superintendent of Community Paramedicine, Andrew Cuglietta, says their data trends were not something they were looking forward to presenting, but felt it was important.
From our previous data in 2019, when we had some of this out to the public, our response was one overdose every 22 hours. And right now, in today's climate, we're about one overdose every 9 hours, which is quite concerning and alarming.
This event comes just a week after the province announced the impending closure of Thunder Bay's only safe consumption site in March. And the federal Safer Supply program is also ending at the same time. Norwest Community Health Center CEO Juanita Lawson says the news was devastating, but they are putting their best foot forward.
We have to remain optimistic and we have to look forward. There's some decisions that have been made and we will, again, as a community, I'm very confident that I'm so confident in our community that we will find a way to do this important work and not give up.
It's heartbreaking and I'm not sure what's to come, but in the meantime, like our clients are extremely brokenhearted. We've dealt with a lot of clients that are just absolutely struck hard by it because that is where they come for safety. That is where they come for their health care.
Harm reduction worker Kyle Arnold managed to beat his addiction issues. The key message he wants to get across is that overdose and substance abuse is a healthcare issue and not a choice.
I had a father who was an addict and I believe that was passed down to me essentially. And so when I went to bury my trauma with substances, I became an addict.
Norwest officials want to remind the public about the Lifeguard digital health app, as it notifies emergency responders of a potential overdose and sends out substance alerts when the drug testing machine at Path 525 sees trends in toxic substances to be aware of. Nev Van Pelt, TBT News.
A suspect in the 2019 murder of a Toronto drug dealer here in Thunder Bay has pleaded guilty to lesser charges and will be released from prison in less than a year. 31-year-old Hikomel Gary Joyles was originally charged with first-degree murder, but police later determined that he had a credible alibi, so he was instead convicted of robbery and weapons charges. Yesterday, the court heard that the murder victim, 21-year-old Samatar Warsame, was with a group selling drugs in Thunder Bay when he decided to separate from them and sell on his own. His remains were discovered on January 13, 2019, on the side of Highway 527. OPP spent the next 3.5 years investigating, and in May of 2022, they arrested 4 people, including Joyles, for Warsame's murder. Joyles has now been sentenced to 5 years for the robbery and weapons charges, but with credit for time served, he'll be released in 11 months. The other 3 suspects are scheduled to go to trial for Warsame's murder next month. The full story can be found on tbnewswatch.com.
Thunder Bay OPP have now charged one of the drivers involved in a head-on crash on Highway 102 back in the winter. It happened around 12:30 on the afternoon of January 6th near the Town Line Road intersection. A transport collided with an SUV, leaving the passenger in the smaller vehicle with life-altering injuries. OPP announced today that the driver of the SUV, a 20-year-old man from Fort Francis, has been charged with 1 count of dangerous driving causing bodily harm and 1 count of impaired driving causing bodily harm. He's been released from custody. His next court appearance is in late September.
The doctors serving the town of Rainy River are leaving en masse. MP Marcus Pulowski calls the situation a healthcare crisis, and Rainy River's mayor says she's very concerned.
Still, she's optimistic that more doctors can be brought in to keep the ER open. This all comes after the Rainy River Physician Group announced last week that they're pulling out of both the hospital and the clinic there. Lee Noonan reports.
As of September 30th, the 3 remaining doctors at the Rainy River Health Center are all leaving the hospital. In response, Thunder Bay Rainy River MP Marcus Pulowski is calling for the reinstatement of a federal office of rural health. He says rural Canadians deserve better health care than they're getting. The Rainy River Physician Group announced they will be pulling out because their contract with the Ministry of Health mandates they provide 24-hour ER coverage, but, quote, under the current conditions, they are unable to continue to do that adequately and safely.
It doesn't matter where you live. If you don't have access to a hospital, it's a concern.
The announcement was made on social media and prompted outrage and fear from residents who worry about getting to the hospital in Fort Francis, an hour away, during an emergency.
They're not happy. They're scared. Like, we have a very senior population here too, and we have no public transit of any kind. To get ambulance to the First Nations, they're 50 kilometers north of us. So that's another, it's probably between 2 to 3 hours sometimes in the winter, depending on the roads.
Rainy River Mayor Deb Ewald estimates there are about 4,000 people who'd be directly affected by a hospital closure. That includes 4 other towns and 2 First Nations nearby. However, she's optimistic the hospital and the Ministry of Health will be able to find locum doctors to keep the ER open.
They're actively recruiting now, and it's just kind of a wait and see.
Both the ministry and Riverside Healthcare, which operates the hospital, stated that they are collaborating on a plan and making it a priority to keep the emergency department open 24 hours. None of the current doctors live in Rainy River, commuting in from southern Ontario, according to Ewald.
It wasn't a sustainable model. I'm surprised that they have actually kept it up as long as what they have, because it's basically, there's 4 doctors who come, and they each come 1 week a month, and they work both clinic and emergency and hospital 24 hours a day for 7 days.
The doctors have stated one of them will stay on at the clinic until the end of November, as there's a mandatory notice period, and they hope to negotiate a new contract that would allow the clinic to operate independently of the hospital. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Ontario's energy needs are expected to jump 60% by 2050.
With that in mind, Energy Minister Stephen Lecce announced a plan today that's being billed as the largest competitive energy procurement in Ontario's history. CTV's Siobhan Morris brings us the details.
With new communities springing up all over Ontario and the need for power rising to keep households humming, the province is looking for competitive bids to build capacity in our energy system.
The largest competitive energy procurement in Ontario history. An announcement that will secure up to 5,000 megawatts of power, enough power for roughly 5 million homes.
The energy minister is open to all kinds of projects to make up this mix. There's a focus on nuclear and controversial gas-fired power plants. Also, renewable forms of energy like wind and solar. But there are restrictions intended to preserve pastoral scenes like this.
It's why Ontario's plan will prohibit all ground-mounted solar on prime agricultural areas. We now will also require an agricultural impact assessment before considering any project in a prime farm area.
Stephen Lecce says protecting the lands we draw food from is vital.
For some crops, they can benefit from solar collectors, which increase shade and actually make the crops grow better. So a blanket rule against solar on prime agricultural lands does not make sense.
A bigger threat to prime agricultural land, though, is urban sprawl.
Critics feel the government's all-of-the-above energy approach takes the province backwards.
Burning gas as to generate electricity emits carbon dioxide. It contributes to the climate crisis.
Critics emphasize renewable forms of energy aren't only cleaner, they're also cheapest. So that's where Ontario should be investing.
To triple our supply of wind and solar so we can phase out dirty gas and lower our electricity costs.
The government's requiring buy-in from municipalities in order to build any new energy project in their backyards. Last year, 5 communities said no thanks to gas power plants. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Synergy North will soon have a new president and CEO. Following the retirement of Tim Wilson in May, the board of directors has chosen Rene Gallant to lead the local utility into the future. He's spent 19 years in the industry in Canada and the U.S., most recently as a vice president of Nova Scotia Power. Gallant will begin his new role at Synergy North on November 18th.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be joining a great company, a great team, and in a wonderful community serving Thunder Bay and Kenora, and a company that has a great dedication to its customers, a wonderful track record of reliability, and a very strong safety culture. I couldn't be more thrilled.
Gallant says the local utility has done a great job keeping electricity rates affordable in Thunder Bay and Kenora and quickly responding to issues with the power grid when they arise. He says the future of Synergy North is very exciting, with the province's announcement today to greatly expand energy production in Ontario.
And we need to be ready for it, whether it's electrifying of vehicles or more use of electricity in your homes. There's just a lot of opportunities coming. And so I think we're going to see some growth from Synergy North and broader in the communities as well, from economic development that's going to come from the changes that are coming in our industry.
Lakehead University is set to open next week with about 6,800 students at the Thunder Bay campus.
Around 1,800 of LU's total enrollment are students from other countries. So today, the university held its annual orientation event for new international students at the LU hangar. Joel Mendelson has the story.
The new International Student Welcome is a university-run event which helps new students make friends, familiarize themselves with the school's programs, and get more comfortable living in Thunder Bay.
Students who arrive from overseas have all kinds of questions and unique needs compared to our local students. So we provide them with a whole host of information about things like their study permits and visas, how to stay safe and healthy and happy while they're here at Lakehead, and how to be successful.
This type of event is helpful for me because I get to meet with other colleagues, meet with them, and just hang out with other people from different parts of the world, and it just makes me familiar with the culture here.
Part of the Lakehead culture is the famous Wolfie dance, which all 400 of the day's attendees took part in. Along with the university staff, many international students who have been here a few years volunteer at the welcome party to share their experiences with the newcomers. Overall, Lakehead is expecting about 700 new international students this year, and the ones we spoke to seem to be enjoying the city so far.
People are always asking me questions about where to buy winter clothing, how to use the bus, how to get to Lakehead, how to get to the gym. Those kind of questions are the most common. Also groceries, for example, they don't know most of the markets. In terms of academics, they don't know the supports, and that's why it's important to have someone from upper year so they can help you.
Thunder Bay is a very peaceful place. There's not much crowd, there's not much going on, like the hustle bustle. It's just so free, it's just so calm, not too much stress. I just love Thunder Bay because of that.
Although classes officially kick off this coming Tuesday, Lakehead University holds orientation events throughout the first semester to allow new and international students to get better acquainted with their surroundings and their peers. Joel Mendelson, TBT News.
The City of Thunder Bay held a grand opening for a new inclusive playground at Vickers Park this afternoon. The project follows the success of the Boulevard Lake Playground and now serves as the city's second inclusive play hub. The project came with a price tag of $1.1 million. The new space is designed to encourage people of all ages and abilities to participate in the fun. The playground includes features like a rubber surface suitable for wheelchairs, sensory areas like this spot where visitors can learn to read Braille, and more spacious play areas to account for those who require help to move. West Fort Ward Councillor Kristen Oliver says this demonstrates the city's commitment to inclusivity.
First and foremost, it's important to recognize that this was a community effort. You know, our accessibility committee certainly had some input and insight onto what we need to do to ensure that this is a park that meets the needs of all mobility issues. You know, to see people using this as a destination, coming from all over the city to utilize our public spaces, I think we've knocked it out of the park with this one.
Full, equal, accessible options for everybody. And more places seem to be picking up that. The sensory inclusive options in town seem to be going up, programs and events that include everyone. So it's really great to see it moving in that direction.
Oliver says the next course of action will be to increase accessibility in more parks throughout the city, specifically smaller ones in residential neighborhoods.
And I know that park is always very, very busy with kids and families out there enjoying it. And Fiona, today was a great day to do that, a very comfortable day out there.
I would say it was comfortable, very seasonal. This is actually what we should be seeing at this time of year, maybe a couple degrees cooler, but all in all, it was a beautiful day. And I will reiterate what I said earlier in the week, 42 humidex is not normal. So this was a little bit more towards normal. Okay, maybe a couple degrees cooler, just a couple. But we had mostly cloudy skies. Winds were from the east-northeast, 15 at times, gusting up to 39 km. That was after an early morning low of 14. Normally at this time of year, we should be seeing lows closer to single digits, 8, 9 Celsius. So it was still quite warm. It's just most of us were probably asleep during that portion. If we take a look at what's going on across the region, though, Thunder Bay was one of the cooler spots because the heat is already starting to push back in from the west. We are into the low 20s for a large portion of northwestern Ontario. To the north, we had loads of sunshine, especially up in the Greenstone and Armstrong region. Red Lake actually did have nothing but sunshine for most of the day. It's only been in the last couple of hours that a few clouds have started to roll in. They're currently partly cloudy, but they are at their high for the day of 21, 23 in Kenora, 22 for Sioux Lookout, Dryden, Atikokan, and yes, Fort Frances under mostly cloudy skies. So you head a little bit further east, we're still in those cooler temperatures. 19 seems to be the magic number for most of the region except for Wawa. They're sitting at 14. And Sault Ste. Marie did have some early morning showers just for an hour or two. They're currently mostly cloudy at their high of 19 for the day. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we will drop down to a low of 11, so a little bit cooler, a little closer to the seasonal temperatures. Under mainly clear skies, winds will kind of fluctuating between moderate to light, we'll say 15 to 20 kilometers an hour over the course of tonight, this evening and tonight into tomorrow morning. However, everything that goes down must come up again, and that looks like that's happening in Thunder Bay. As I said, we've got warmer temperatures coming in from the west, reaching Thunder Bay, so we will be back in the 20s for the rest of the week. And as we head into that magical long weekend where people have a lot of plans, I think people will be generally satisfied. We'll say satisfied with the forecast.
All right. Well, that is good to hear. Kind of the unofficial end of summer, as we know, Fiona, that Labor Day long weekend. A lot of folks will want to get outside and enjoy it. All right, a couple of big stories that we're paying attention to today. The first out of Winnipeg, convicted serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky given 4 life sentences today for killing 4 Indigenous women. Then in Ottawa, Canada's public safety minister was on the hot seat asking questions about how the perpetrators of that, would-be perpetrators of that foiled terror plot in Toronto came to Canada. We'll have details on those stories and more when your news hour continues right after the break.
Our government will continue to prevent, detect, disrupt, and respond to any suspected terrorist threats.